welcome to Jakarta. Next, please. Okay, just go ahead. All right. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, so for example, if any one of you don't know yet about the position of the Jakarta and what is the difference with the megapolis of the Jakarta, Jakarta is one of the very vulnerable city in the world with 30 rivers and most 40% of its line is below sea level. And we also face the extreme weather and increasing temperature right now. Even the rising sea level for at least 3 meters in the last 30 years. Go ahead. And Jakarta is one of the most busiest city in ASEAN. But anyway, we have done and have a kind of follow up for the Paris Agreement. We have national policy and regulatory framework for the climate change mitigations. And this task force is focused on at least 2 ministers, Minister of Environment and Forestry, and also Minister of Home Affairs. Okay, go ahead. All right, so Indonesia, especially in climate actions, we have to adapt with the new updated NDC. Could you please go back first? And yeah, our NDC now want to achieve the unconditional target for 31.89% of the emission reduction, and also conditionally we want to reach 43.2%. It's quite different with the previous NDP that we proposed from 29 and also 41%. Okay, go ahead. Okay, what kind of issue that we faced recently is that at least the fact said in 2019 that Jakarta is one of the top 5 most polluted cities globally, and it can be shown also when the findings when we faced the pandemic last years, we meet the reduction of the level of CO2, which can be clear seen the scenery of the cities. But after that, we have a rising, carbon against of CO2 level. Yeah, go ahead. And we in Jakarta itself produce like 38% of greenhouse gases emissions only from the transport. Remember that this transport emissions is coming from the using of the fuel energy. Yeah, next. Okay. What is our aim is reaching Jakarta net zero by 2050, and especially we have the sector management to be floored. It is the transport, and the three points in the very first are aiming for reducing the emissions, while the last point is for absorbing the CO2. So, for example, the first point is how we want people to use more public transport, and then the second one that we need to reduce the emission from the transport sector, and the third is the pedestrian and cycling infrastructure friendly, and then last but not least is tree cover in Jakarta to be increased. Next. Okay. Again, we reach a quite high picometers of emissions in Jakarta, just coming from the using of the motorcycles and vehicles. We have millions of registered motorcycles and vehicles, and contribute to those increasing emissions from the 2.5 picometers into 10 picometers. And yet, the culture of the walk is only less than 4 thousands steps per day. Okay, we can move. Yeah, this is a kind of a simple survey that actually what kind of public transport that people want in Jakarta. MRT is one of the biggest one because it's quite convenient. But the number of MRT should be increasing too, and the using of the renewable energy in MRT should be keep supporting with any other vehicles, and also registered vehicles, for example, motorcycles and cars, because the using of the private cars and motorcycles privately in Jakarta is really high, rather than any others public transportation. Next. Yeah, please, next. All right. So the focusing in some points will be delivered by Anne. Could you please, Anne?
Okay.
Yes, the time is yours.
Okay, so thank you, Emmy, for presenting the researches that help us to choose our focus sector, and from these our outcomes and the impact that we want to achieve from the strategy, and yes, and to from what Emmy already present, I think that you all have the overall picture. So here on the slide are some more data from to guide us to achieve the outcome. Yes, and so from what we from the data what we have, we further develop into detail the output and the activities for it. As Emmy already mentioned, we have 4 outcomes, and I will go step one by one in general first. So the first outcome is more people are using the public transportation. You can see from the previous slide that the number of people in Jakarta using the public transportation is quite limited, and there are survey about how they feel about the public transportation, and more than yeah, and a large amount, a large proportion of people in Jakarta don't want to use MRT. So to achieve this outcome, we have 4 main output. The first one to increase the accessibility of the public transportation service with activities like build more buses or public transportation stations. The second one is to give the public transportation cheaper price. It's on why we call it cheaper price, because it's already cheap. But now people prefer the convenience more than the price, and they own and now the public transportation is competing with some Grab or Gojek. So that the reason why we think that we should have more incentive to encourage them to do public transportation, to help them to establish the habits of using public transportation. And then along with that, we have the output about measure to reduce the usage of car or private vehicle, such as increased tariff to buy car or vehicle, or restricted hours for car or motorbike to enter the city centers during rush hour. The next one is about the public awareness raise with training or campaign to raise the awareness of people about the public transportation. The second one is the outcome about public transportation emission are reduced by the output, like increasing using the renewable energy on public and private transportation, and also electrifying 100% public transport. And along with that, we increase the energy efficiency in the public transportation. And the next outcome is developing cycle and pedestrian friendly infrastructure. From the research, we found that the main reason why the Jakarta people don't want to use, don't like to walk, because of the condition of the pathway, and also the security and safety reason on the street. So we come up with the output like improving the bike length or the pedestrian pathway, and also improve the condition of street security and safety management. And the last one is about the increase in tree cover in Jakarta. And from the previous research, we see that tree is one of the more efficient way to absorb the carbons. So we found that Jakarta have the potential to plant more tree, and also about the beachland restoration. So we come up, and beside that, the output number 4.4 is about the blue infrastructure. It's about the because Jakarta is a coastal city, so we also to come up with an input, an output here to think about the ocean. And for the implementer, I think it's the same for many groups regarding the government, the international organization, researcher, and also the youth. I want to emphasize the youth participation in this in this strategy. And yeah, for the monitoring plan, actually it's our project timeline and also the monitoring plan, because we base our monitoring on the implementation plans. And here we divide our activities and output into 4 phases, so that we can monitor the progress of the implementation of the strategy. Sorry. And for the indicator, it's also based on what we want to achieve in the strategy. For example, we have the indicator for the outcomes, and also indicator for the outputs. You can see here for each the outcome, we have the main indicator. For example, the proportion of people using public transportation annually, and the second is the amount of emission from the transportation sector. The third one is the proportion of people working or entertaining purpose, and the last one is the proportion of green space compared to covered land. Sorry, so in each output we have the indicator as well. For example, the number of bus stations, buses in operation. Yeah. Our implementation strategy is we say it's implementation progress strategy. We divide it into different stages of implementation so that we can monitor progress, and we can feedback, and we can revise our strategy if needed. And we engage the stakeholder. So it will be sometimes top down from the government with the leading role, and sometimes it's also border up and between the stakeholder as well. Regarding the challenges and risks, we have some kind of, the social culture. For example, the habit of people to use a private vehicle. Also about the culture, the Muslim culture, not to share the car with stranger. The priority of the government of the sector compared to other, the technical capacity, conflict of interest from the business side. Yeah. And we have some mitigation measure. For example, we have awareness raising campaigns, funding, call for funding from international organization, or capacity building for to develop the technical capacity, the communication with different stakeholders to increase the awareness as well. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.